The black wolf should have torn Evelyn Marlowe's throat out. Instead, it dragged one injured leg across the library floor, crawled beneath her reading table, and collapsed beside her shoes. Evelyn froze, with an old book open in her hands. Rain hammered the windows of Briar Glen Library. Blood darkened the wolf's shoulder, but its steel gray eyes remained fixed on her. "All right," she whispered. "You're frightened. I'm frightened. Neither of us needs to make this worse." The wolf's ears twitched. That was somehow more unsettling than a growl. Evelyn slowly placed a bowl of water beneath the table, then returned to her chair. She couldn't carry him. Calling the village guard might get him killed. So she chose the only thing she could think to do. She kept reading. "Before we go farther, where are you listening from tonight? Tell me in the comments." Stay with Evelyn until the end, because the reason this wounded wolf chose her forgotten library would eventually stop an entire room of powerful shifters cold. Evelyn lowered her gaze to the king beyond the lantern. Once there was a king who could hear every voice in his kingdom, she read. Yet when night came, he could no longer hear his own. Beneath the table, the wolf stopped trembling. Evelyn paused. His breathing had changed. Slow, steady, almost peaceful. "Do you like this one?" One black ear lifted. Evelyn stared at him. Then the royal bells began ringing beyond the storm. 4 measured peals, the signal announcing the approaching Concord renewal. At the first bell, the wolf jerked upright. At the second, his claws scraped the floor. At the third, something invisible seemed to crush the air around him. Books rattled on their shelves. Evelyn's Omega instinct screamed at her to run. Instead, she opened the book again. "Hey, stay with the story." The 4th bell sounded. She repeated the line about the lonely king. The pressure vanished. The wolf lowered his head onto his paws. Evelyn didn't understand what she had done. She only knew that something powerful had heard her voice and chosen not to fight it. By morning, the storm was gone. So was the wolf. But beside the untouched bowl of water lay one coarse black hair tipped with silver. And the following night, just as Evelyn opened the same book, claws scratched softly at the library door. The wolf returned at exactly 8:17 the next evening. Evelyn knew because she was staring at the library clock when claws scratched twice against the back door. She stopped shelving books. No, another scratch. Evelyn looked toward the door. "You cannot possibly understand opening hours." Silence, then scratch. Evelyn sighed. "Apparently, you understand persistence." She opened the door. The black wolf sat beneath the stone archway. Rainwater glistened across his fur, although tonight there was barely enough rain to justify how wet he was. His injured front leg no longer dragged. That was the first thing Evelyn noticed. The second was that he had brought something. A pine cone rested between his paws. Evelyn stared at it. The wolf stared back. "Is that for me?" He nudged it forward. Something inside Evelyn softened. "That's either very sweet or an extremely poor payment for library membership." The wolf walked past her. "Come in, then." He went directly toward the reading table. Evelyn expected him to crawl beneath it. Instead, he stopped beside her chair, looked at the floor, then at her. "Your usual seat is available." He remained standing. Evelyn sat. Only then did the wolf lower himself beside her chair, not underneath the table, beside her, close enough that she could feel warmth from his body against her ankle. Evelyn became very still. "All right." The wolf rested his head on his paws. Closer tonight, one ear twitched. Evelyn smiled. Progress. She reached for the king beyond the lantern. The wolf's eyes immediately opened. "You really do like this book." He looked at it, then at her. Evelyn laughed quietly. "You are officially my most loyal customer." The joke should not have hurt. It did. Briar Glen Library had once been busy, at least according to Evelyn's grandmother. Had crowded the reading room. Travelers had exchanged books. Pack elders had spent winter evenings arguing over histories beside the fireplace. Now most villagers purchased cheap printed stories from the traveling merchants. The younger shifters went to Grey Cross for entertainment. On some days, Evelyn opened the library at 9 and closed at 7 without a single visitor. The village council had already warned her. If attendance did not improve before winter, funding would end. The library would close. Evelyn ran her fingers over the worn book cover. "You're not exactly helping my official numbers." The wolf watched her. Apparently, they don't count mysterious forest predators. His tail moved once against the floor. Evelyn froze. "Did you just find that funny?" "Nothing. You're very suspicious." She opened the book. "Fine." Chapter 7. By the 4th night, Evelyn began leaving water out before he arrived. By the 6th, she added food. He refused the cooked venison. He ate the bread. Evelyn found this deeply confusing. What kind of wolf refuses meat? The black wolf looked offended. "Fine. Maybe you weren't hungry." He ate another piece of bread. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. "I have questions." He had no intention of answering them. His wound was healing remarkably quickly. The torn flesh across his shoulder had closed. His limp disappeared. His breathing was strong. There was no obvious reason for him to keep returning. Yet every evening, sometime between 8 and 8:30, Evelyn heard the same quiet scratching, never demanding, never forcing the door. If she took too long, he waited. That mattered to her more than she understood. One night, Evelyn deliberately waited 3 minutes before opening. The wolf remained sitting outside. "You know you could probably break this door." His eyes moved toward the wooden frame, then back to her. "Yes, that's what I thought." She stepped aside. He entered. Choice. The thought stayed with her. The wolf could come inside only because she opened the door, and Evelyn could read only because he stayed to listen. Neither forced the other. Perhaps that was why their strange routine felt safer than it should have. On the 7th evening, Evelyn changed books. She selected a ridiculous romance about a warrior alpha pretending to be a shepherd. The wolf lasted 12 pages before placing one enormous paw over his face. Evelyn stopped reading. No, the paw remained. "You are not criticizing my selection." One steel-gray eye appeared between his toes. This book won an award. The eye disappeared. Evelyn laughed so hard she lost her place. "You are impossible." His tail struck the floor once. "You understood that." Another strike. Evelyn slowly lowered the book. The wolf stopped moving. She studied him. "You understand far more than you should." His eyes met hers. For several seconds, neither moved. Evelyn's heartbeat changed. Shifters possessed wolf forms. Everyone knew that. But shifted wolves normally retained recognizable pack scent signatures. This animal had none she could identify, and there was something else. Intelligence. Not animal intelligence. Person intelligence. Evelyn swallowed. "Are you—" Thunder cracked above the library. The wolf screamed. Not howled, screamed. He surged upright. Shelves shook. The fireplace flared. Every omega instinct inside Evelyn collapsed beneath a wave of alpha pressure. She stumbled from her chair. The wolf backed into the table. His eyes had turned almost completely silver. "Hey!" He did not hear her. Another thunderclap. The air became heavy. Evelyn's knees weakened. Images struck her. Not images exactly. Feelings, hundreds of them. Anger, fear, territorial aggression, grief, voices without words, all pressing inward, and beneath them, one unbearable exhaustion. Evelyn grabbed the table. It wasn't hers. She knew that instantly. The loneliness was not hers. But she could feel it as though she had carried it for years. A throne room filled with people, everyone wanting something, everyone expecting strength. No place to put down the weight. The wolf snarled. Evelyn understood. He was not attacking. He was drowning. Her eyes landed on the king beyond the lantern. She picked it up. Her hands shook. Listen. The wolf's head snapped toward her. Evelyn opened to the first marked page. Once there was a king who could hear every voice in his kingdom. The wolf trembled. Yet when night came, he could no longer hear his own. The pressure eased. Evelyn continued. The king traveled beyond the last lantern, searching for a place where nobody knew his crown. Something warm moved through her voice, not volume, not command, meaning. The words seemed to enter the room differently. The wolf's silver eyes dimmed. At the edge of the forest, he found an old storyteller who asked him only one question. Evelyn's throat tightened. She had read this passage dozens of times. Tonight the words felt alive. She did not ask what kingdom he ruled. The wolf lowered his head. She asked whether he was tired. Silence. The alpha pressure disappeared. The wolf collapsed beside her chair. Evelyn stopped reading. A tear ran down her cheek. She touched it. Why was she crying? The answer came with frightening certainty. Because he was, not physically. Something inside him was. Evelyn stared at the black wolf. What are you? He closed his eyes. Later, after he fell asleep, Evelyn examined the book. A faint silver glow appeared along the edge of page 93. She almost dropped it. What in the world? Tiny handwriting had been hidden beneath the faded margin. Evelyn carried the book toward the lamp. The letters became clearer. A story freely heard may reach where command cannot. Her pulse quickened. She turned the page. Nothing. Back again. The sentence remained. Below it was a symbol, an open book, surrounded by 7 small stars. Evelyn had seen it before. She searched the shelves until she found an old history index. Nothing. A folklore catalog. Nothing. Then she remembered the illustration near the back of the king, beyond the lantern. She turned to it. A crowned man sat beside a woman holding an open book. Around them lay wolves, not bowing, not kneeling, resting. Evelyn had always assumed it was decorative. Tonight she noticed the symbol embroidered on the woman's sleeve, an open book. 7 stars, the same symbol. Beneath the illustration was a faded word Evelyn had never paid attention to. Storykeeper. The wolf moved behind her. Evelyn closed the book. You know something about this, don't you? He watched her. Of course you won't answer. She sat beside him. After a moment, she whispered, That loneliness earlier. His body went rigid. Was it yours? The wolf looked away. That was answer enough. Evelyn did not touch him. She simply reopened the book. Do you want me to continue? The wolf looked toward the door. He could leave. Evelyn waited. Eventually, he lowered his head beside her chair, stayed. So she read. The following afternoon, a royal notice appeared on the library door. Evelyn found 3 villagers gathered around it. By order of the crown. Unusual resonance disturbances have been detected throughout the Northern Territories ahead of the Concord renewal. All citizens are required to report uncontrolled alpha manifestations immediately. Evelyn's stomach tightened. Mrs. Bellamy from the bakery pointed toward the notice. Probably some young alpha showing off. Probably. You haven't noticed anything strange? Evelyn thought of shaking books, silver eyes, a loneliness so deep it had felt like standing at the bottom of the sea. No, the lie came quietly. That evening, she left the bowl of water outside anyway. 8:17 arrived, no wolf. 8:30, nothing. 9. Evelyn told herself she was relieved. His injury had healed. Perhaps he had returned to his pack. Perhaps that was good. At 9:15, claws scratched. Evelyn opened the door too quickly. The wolf stood there, completely dry, no limp, no blood, no sign of injury whatsoever. Evelyn stared. You don't need help anymore. The wolf became still. She stepped aside. He looked into the library, then toward the forest. Evelyn felt an unexpected ache. She hated it. You can go. He remained at the threshold. I'm serious. The wolf looked at her. If you're healed, you don't owe me anything. For several seconds, neither moved. Then the wolf turned. Evelyn's chest sank. He took 3 steps toward the forest, stopped, turned around, walked back past her, straight to the reading chair. He lay down beside it, not beneath the table, not because he was hiding, not because he was injured, because he wanted to be there. Evelyn slowly closed the door. Something inside her warmed. All right. She picked up The King Beyond the Lantern, my most loyal customer. The wolf settled his head beside her feet. Outside, distant royal bells began rehearsing the sequence for the Concord renewal. The first bell rang. The wolf's body tightened. Evelyn opened the book before the second. She began reading, and somewhere beneath the words, something ancient inside her answered. The wolf did not come back the next night. At 8:17, Evelyn looked toward the library door. Nothing. At 8:30, she opened The King Beyond the Lantern. Anyway, at 9, she stopped pretending to read. The bowl of water remained untouched. You are ridiculous, she told herself. He was a wolf, possibly a shifter, definitely dangerous, and completely healed. He owed her nothing. Still, Evelyn left the bowl outside when she locked the library. The following night, it remained untouched, so did the night after that. By the third evening, Evelyn put the bowl away. That hurt more than it should have. The Alpha King arrived in Briar Glen the following morning. Royal banners appeared first, then mounted guards, then villagers flooded the square. Evelyn watched through the library window as a tall man dismounted from a black horse. King Rowan Thorne. She recognized him immediately. Everyone did. His portraits hung in council buildings across Valadorn. Black hair, broad shoulders, the thin scar near his temple, a ceremonial coat bearing the silver crown wolf insignia. The village alpha dropped to one knee. Everyone followed. Evelyn knelt last. Not intentionally, something about the king had caught her attention. His eyes, gray-blue, almost steel beneath the winter light. Impossible. Rowan's gaze crossed the crowd, stopped on her. Everything inside Evelyn went still. No, the king's expression barely changed, but she saw it. Recognition. Rise, Rowan said. The villagers obeyed. Lord Adrian Voss stepped down from the second carriage. He was lean, elegantly dressed, perhaps in his 40s, with the controlled expression of a man who considered surprises personal insults. The Crown thanks Briar Glen for its cooperation, Adrian announced. Recent resonance disturbances require inspection before the Concord renewal. Evelyn barely heard him. Rowan was still looking at her. Then his gaze shifted toward the library, and Evelyn knew, not suspected news. The wolf had looked at that door exactly the same way. An hour later, Rowan entered Briar Glen Library without guards. Evelyn stood behind the circulation desk. Neither spoke. Finally she said, "You're taller like this." One corner of Rowan's mouth moved. Evelyn's stomach dropped. The wolf had made that expression too. "You." "Yes." "You're him." "Yes." The bread-eating wolf. Rowan closed his eyes briefly. "I had hoped we might begin elsewhere. You put your paw over your face when I read you that shepherd romance. It was terrible." Evelyn stared at him. "You understood everything." "Yes, everything I said." Rowan looked almost apologetic. "Yes." She remembered talking to him about the library, about being lonely, about nobody listening, about the village council closing the place. Heat rushed into her face. "You could have shifted. At first, I couldn't safely." "And later?" Rowan said nothing. That silence hurt. "Later?" Evelyn repeated. "I could." She stepped backward. "So you lied." "I never spoke." "That is an impressively royal distinction, Evelyn." "Don't." Rowan stopped immediately. That made being angry with him inconvenient. "Why are you here? The Concord renewal." "No. Here." She pointed at the floor. "My library." His gaze moved toward her reading chair, then back. Before he answered, Evelyn said, "Prove it." Rowan frowned. "What?" "Prove you were the wolf." He could describe the room, the bread, the pine cone. None of those would be enough. Rowan understood. Walked toward the reading table but stopped several feet away, then quietly said, "Once there was a king who could hear every voice in his kingdom, yet when night came, he could no longer hear his own." Evelyn's breath caught. Nobody else had heard her read that line. Rowan continued. "The king traveled beyond the last lantern, searching for a place where nobody knew his crown. He remembered every word." Something warm answered inside Evelyn. She crushed it. "Why did you keep coming back?" Rowan's expression changed. Before he could answer, the library door opened. Adrian entered with 2 royal officers. Majesty. Rowan's jaw tightened. "I requested privacy." "We no longer have the luxury." Adrian's gaze settled on Evelyn. "So, this is her." Evelyn folded her arms. "I've had an unusual number of powerful men discuss me as though I'm furniture lately." Adrian ignored the remark. "Miss Marlowe, did you perform an enchantment on His Majesty?" "No." "Did you alter his emotional state?" "I read him a book." Adrian looked toward Rowan. "A book. It was more effective than your physicians," Rowan said. Adrian's expression cooled. "That is precisely the problem." They used the old archive room because Evelyn refused to leave the library. Adrian placed several documents on the table: maps, Concord diagrams, reports of pack disturbances. "The renewal is in 48 hours, he said. "His Majesty's crown resonance has become increasingly unstable." Evelyn looked at Rowan. "What exactly is crown resonance?" Adrian answered. "The crown maintains a supernatural connection to recognized pack leadership throughout Valadorn." "Connection? How?" Rowan spoke this time. "I feel them." Evelyn frowned. The pack leaders, their strongest instincts, fear, anger, grief, the emotions she had felt during the thunderstorm. Of them, normally at distance. During Concord renewal, the connection strengthens. Evelyn stared. "How many?" 387 pack representatives are expected. Her stomach turned. "You'll feel all of them?" "Yes." "And someone thought that was a good idea." Adrian's mouth tightened. "The system has maintained peace for generations. That wasn't my question." Rowan almost smiled. Adrian unfolded another diagram. "This renewal has been modified." Rowan's amusement vanished. "Without my authorization. With council approval." The diagram showed circles connected to a central crown. Evelyn leaned closer. Something about the pattern bothered her. The lines were not simply geometric, they had rhythm. Long connection, pause, short, pause, repeated. Like punctuation, like. She looked toward the king beyond the lantern resting on the archive shelf. Adrian noticed. What? Nothing yet. He continued, the modifications should distribute emotional instability across the network rather than forcing the king to absorb it alone. Should? Evelyn asked. Every system requires testing. On 387 people, on train pack representatives, they can still panic. Adrian's expression hardened. My father died in a pack uprising, Miss Marlowe. The room became quiet. 23 shifters lost control in less than 6 minutes. By the time Crown forces arrived, 41 people were dead. Evelyn's anger softened, not agreement, understanding. Adrian looked toward Rowan. Power without a stabilizing mechanism is not freedom. It is a threat waiting for circumstance. Rowan's voice was calm, and power that controls people for their own protection. Sometimes restraint prevents tragedy. There it was, the fault line. Evelyn understood both sides enough to be frightened by them. Adrian turned to her. If your voice can suppress alpha instability, it doesn't. You calmed the king. I read, then read to this officer. One of the guards stiffened. Evelyn looked at him. His hands were shaking. Fear, not aggression. Adrian gestured demonstrate. No, Miss Marlowe. Did he ask me to? Adrian blinked. He's under Crown authority. I didn't ask whether you volunteered him. She looked at the guard. Do you want me to try? His gaze flicked toward Adrian. Then Rowan. No, ma'am. Then no. Adrian stared at her. You may possess the only known mechanism capable of stabilizing Crown resonance. Then we should probably learn how it works before using frightened people as experiments. Rowan looked at her differently after that. Respect, not gratitude. Evelyn felt the distinction. When Adrian left, Rowan remained. Evelyn opened The King Beyond the Lantern. The faded storykeeper mark shimmered. Have you seen this? Rowan approached only when she gestured permission. His shoulder came near hers. Warmth moved between them, stronger than before. Evelyn stepped away. Rowan did too. What was that? He became very still. You haven't felt it before? Not like that. Rowan exhaled. Evelyn, among shifters there are certain bonds. No, you don't know what I'm going to say. You're going to say mate bond. Silence. Evelyn closed her eyes. Of course you are. It may. Recognition can be distorted by Crown resonance. Your whatever this ability is makes certainty difficult. Wonderful. She paced. So, the mysterious wolf is the Alpha King. My apparently ordinary reading voice isn't ordinary. And now, Destiny has opinions about my romantic life. Rowan almost smiled. She pointed at him. Do not. The smile disappeared. Evelyn, a mate bond is recognition. Nothing more. She stopped. You believe that? Yes. It doesn't mean trust. No. Love. No. Ownership. His expression hardened. Never. Something in Evelyn relaxed. Rowan continued. If you want distance, you have it. And if the bond doesn't outrank you. She looked at him for a long moment. That answer mattered. Perhaps more than she wanted it to. Near sunset, Rowan asked the question she had expected all afternoon. Will you help me investigate the Concord? Evelyn looked around her library. This is where you order me to the palace? No, Adrian would. I'm not Adrian. You are king. Which gives me more responsibility to ask, not less. Evelyn studied him. Do you need a heart script? So that's what we're calling it. It's written in the margin. Rowan nodded. I don't know what I need. That admission sounded expensive for him. I know that when you read, crown resonance becomes quiet. His gaze moved toward the reading chair. For the first time since I was 16, I could hear only one voice. Evelyn's anger weakened. Mine, yours. The answer was too intimate. She looked away. I'll help investigate. Rowan's shoulders relaxed. Thank you. I'm not moving into the palace. I didn't ask. My library remains open. Agreed. And nobody becomes my test subject. Agreed. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. You're unusually easy to negotiate with. I spent a week being insulted by you while disguised as a wolf. My expectations have adjusted. She laughed before she could stop herself. Rowan smiled. This time she let him. After he left, Evelyn compared the Concord diagram with the old Storykeeper illustration. She found the first match after midnight. The circles around the crown corresponded to paragraph marks in the ancient text. The connecting lines matched pauses, not commands, responses, call, answer, speaker, listener. Her heartbeat quickened. The original Concord had not been built around one voice controlling many. It had been constructed like a conversation. Evelyn turned the illustration over. Faded handwriting appeared on the back. The crown hears the packed column below it. The Storykeeper reminds the crown which voice is his own. Evelyn stopped breathing. The modern diagram had removed half the structure. Storykeeper positions were gone, only crown remained at the center. A knock sounded at the window. Evelyn jumped. Rowan stood outside, not as a wolf, human. She opened the window. What are you doing? I forgot something at midnight. His eyes dropped toward the diagram. What did you find? Evelyn showed him. Rowan read the hidden words. His face changed. Before either could speak, every bell in Briar Glen rang at once. Rowan doubled over. Evelyn caught his arm. Emotions struck her. Not one feeling. Hundreds: fear, anger, aggression, panic, all coming through him. Rowan gripped the windowsill. It's starting. The Concord? His eyes flashed silver. No. He looked toward the distant capital. Someone is testing the network. Evelyn followed the lines on the diagram. All of them led to one central point, Rowan. And for the first time she understood the true danger. The Alpha King was not the strongest person inside the coming Concord. He was the place where everyone else's fear would meet. By dawn, Evelyn understood one terrifying truth about crown resonance. Rowan was not losing control of his own emotions. He was losing the ability to tell which emotions were his. And in less than 12 hours, 387 pack representatives would gather inside the Concord Hall. Every one of them would connect to him. You are not coming. Evelyn looked up from the old Storykeeper text. Rowan stood across the library table. No. His jaw tightened. That wasn't a question. Then it was a waste of breath. Evelyn. She closed the book. If Adrian is testing the network before the renewal, someone changed the Concord deliberately. Which is precisely why I want you away from it. And I'm apparently the only living person who can read half the original instructions, which makes you valuable. Her expression cooled. Rowan caught the mistake immediately. That came out wrong. It certainly did. I mean, you're a target. So are you. I am Alpha King. And I'm a librarian. Apparently, neither profession has adequate workplace protections, despite everything. Rowan almost smiled. Then the bells rang again. His expression vanished. Evelyn felt the change before she saw it. Fear struck her chest. Not hers. Rowan gripped the table. His eyes flashed silver. How many? She asked. Too many. Look at me. He did. Evelyn reached for the king, beyond the lantern, then stopped. Last night reading had helped. This morning she needed to know why. "Do you want me to read?" Rowan stared at her. The question mattered. She could feel that. Yes. Only then did Evelyn open the book. The conquered hall had been built to make people feel small. Stone wolves guarded 12 enormous pillars. Pack banners hung from a ceiling so high that Evelyn could barely see the beams. At the center stood the crown circle. 387 marked positions surrounded it, and one place had been prepared for Evelyn. Beside Rowan, Adrian Voss waited near the central dais. "You came disappointed, relieved?" Evelyn did not believe him. Adrian gestured toward the Storykeeper book in her hands. "Have you determined the mechanism?" "Partly. Can you stabilize His Majesty?" "Possibly." "Then we proceed." "No." Adrian's expression hardened. Rowan stepped between them. "We proceed when I authorize it." "Majesty, Pack representatives have already traveled across Valadorn. They can travel home again." Murmurs spread through the gathering crowd. Adrian lowered his voice. "If you cancel now, every alpha in this kingdom will know the crown cannot control its own resonance." Rowan's eyes cooled. Perhaps the crown should stop pretending control is the same thing as stability. Evelyn looked at him. That was new. Adrian heard it too. His gaze moved toward her. Accusation without words. She had changed the king. Or that was what he believed. Evelyn opened the old diagram. "We can test the original structure first. How one crown, one Storykeeper, voluntary connection." Adrian frowned. "Voluntary, yes. That introduces uncertainty. People usually do." Rowan stepped into the crown circle. Evelyn took the place beside him. The first Pack representative entered his mark voluntarily. An elderly alpha named Tomas. "You may stop at any time," Evelyn told him. Adrian exhaled impatiently. Tomas nodded. "Proceed." The network activated. Evelyn felt Rowan's presence first. Pine smoke, rain, dark cedar. Then Thomas. Grief, deep and old, a son. Gone. Rowan flinched. Evelyn opened the book. She read. Heartscript stirred, but nothing settled. Instead, Thomas's grief passed through Rowan and struck Evelyn. Her eyes filled. She lost the sentence. The resonance broke. Thomas stumbled out of the circle. Adrian's face hardened, failed. "No," Evelyn whispered. She touched her chest. The grief remained, not hers. She knew it was not hers, yet her body believed otherwise. Hidden cost. The realization chilled her. Heartscript did not erase emotion. It listened. And somehow, Evelyn listened with more than her ears. Rowan stepped toward her. "Are you hurt?" "No." The lie sounded weak. "Evelyn, we don't have time." She looked around the hall. Pack representatives were entering. The last safe moment was disappearing. Rowan saw it too. "You can still leave." She looked toward the doors, open. Guards had not blocked them. She could walk out, return to Briar Glen, her books, her empty library, her quiet life. Then Evelyn noticed a young Omega representative rubbing her hands together nervously. An alpha from the western mountains paced near his mark. A mother kissed her mate before entering the circle. None of them knew someone had already tested this network through Rowan. Evelyn closed the book. "I'm staying." Rowan's jaw tightened. "Because you choose to." "Yes." Only then did he nod. The renewal began at noon. For the first several minutes, nothing happened. Pack representatives entered their circles. The crown marks awakened. Rowan stood at the center. Evelyn watched silver light travel through the floor. One connection, 10.50. 100. Rowan's breathing changed. Rowan, I'm all right. That's becoming one of my least favorite lies. A faint smile. Then connection 200 opened. Rowan's smile disappeared. Evelyn felt anger brush her mind. Then fear. Then excitement. Then suspicion. Emotions stacked over one another. 300. The hall became unbearably loud despite nobody speaking. Evelyn gripped her book. The storykeeper position beneath her feet remained dark. Wrong. Adrian. He stood near the control dais. What? My mark isn't active. It is unnecessary. Evelyn's stomach dropped. What did you do? The modifications distribute resonance more efficiently. You removed the storykeeper channel. We removed an obsolete dependency. Rowan's eyes turned silver. Shut it down, Adrian hesitated. Now, I cannot. The first scream came from the eastern circle. An alpha collapsed. His panic hit Rowan. Crown resonance amplified it. The amplified panic returned through the network. Another shifter screamed. Then another. Feedback. Evelyn understood. Disconnect them. We'll destabilize the structure. It's already unstable. Adrian moved toward the controls, then stopped. His eyes settled on Rowan. Something calculated entered his expression. Perhaps this is necessary. Evelyn stared. What? The council needs to see the weakness in the current crown. Rowan doubled over. Adrian raised his voice. Activate stabilizing sequence. The floor ignited. Every mark opened completely. 387 minds slammed into Rowan at once. He roared. The sound shook dust from the ceiling. Pack representatives began shifting. Fear became aggression. Aggression became more fear. Crown resonance fed everything back. A supernatural panic cascade. Adrian, this can still be controlled. Shut it down. We need a stabilizing force. His eyes found Evelyn. Your voice. She froze. Use it. Heart script doesn't work that way. You made the king calm because he listened. Then make them listen. Evelyn stared at him. I can't, or won't. Both. A nearby wolf snapped at another representative. Guards rushed forward. Miss Marlowe, Adrian said, you possess an ability capable of suppressing this. No. I possess an ability people can choose to receive. People are being injured. Because you activated a system, they cannot choose to leave. Adrian's composure cracked. Read, no. That is an order of the Royal Council. Evelyn felt something inside herself become perfectly still. No, Adrian stared at her. Rowan lifted his head. Even drowning beneath hundreds of emotions, he heard her. Adrian stepped closer. Then what use is your gift? Everything stopped. Not the panic, not the screaming. Something inside Evelyn. A memory, the first night. A wounded black wolf beneath her table. She had not commanded him to stay. She had put down water, opened a book, read. He could have left, he didn't. Second night. She opened the door. He entered. Later, when healed, she told him he could go. He walked toward the forest, then chose to return. Choice, every time. Heartscript had never forced Rowan to listen. It became powerful because he did. Evelyn looked around the hall. She had been asking the wrong question. How could she make 387 shifters hear her? She couldn't. She didn't need to. She only needed to give them something worth choosing. Evelyn stepped away from the dead storykeeper Mark. What are you doing? Adrian demanded. She walked into the center of the hall. No magical circle, no amplifier, no authority, just a librarian holding an old book. She opened it. Adrian laughed once. You think they'll hear you? Evelyn looked at Rowan. Silver eyes met hers. She began. Once there was a king who could hear every voice in his kingdom except his own. Rowan, froze. Recognition. His breathing slowed. Not much. Enough, Evelyn continued. The king believed strength meant hearing every fear. A wolf lunged across the western circle, carrying every grief. Someone stopped shouting and answering every anger. Rowan closed his eyes. He believed if he ever admitted the voices were too heavy, his people would discover he was not strong enough to carry their crown. Another shifter stopped, then another, not because magic seized them, because they listened. Heartscript awakened. Warmth entered Evelyn's voice. The book's faded markings began glowing. Adrian saw. His face changed. Confusion. Amplify her. A technician reached for the controls. No, Evelyn shouted. The heartscript vanished. The listeners startled. Evelyn looked at Adrian. You still don't understand. We need everyone connected. No. She lowered her voice. They have to choose. Adrian's face tightened. Choice is what created this chaos. No. Evelyn looked around the hall. Fear did. Then she continued reading. No amplification, no command. A woman near the northern circle sat down, listened. The shifter beside her followed. Rowan opened his eyes. Gray-blue, not silver. He looked at Evelyn as though they were back in Briar Glen. One wolf, one librarian, one story. At the edge of the last lantern, Evelyn read. The king found a storyteller. Rowan whispered the next words with her. She did not ask what kingdom he ruled. People nearest him heard. Evelyn smiled through tears. She asked whether he was tired. Rowan exhaled. Yes, one word. Not king. Not alpha. A tired man answering a question. The crown circle dimmed. The panic feedback weakened. Adrian stared at the floor. No, more representatives chose to sit. More listened. The resonance changed. It stopped moving outward from Rowan. Instead, hundreds of separate emotional currents softened, not erased, not controlled, held. Adrian's confusion became recognition. You aren't suppressing them. Evelyn continued reading. His face went pale. You can't. Now he understood. Heartscript was useless as the weapon he wanted. A weapon worked whether its target consented or not. This did not. No, Adrian whispered. Denial, fear, because a power built on choice could not belong to his council. He could not institutionalize willingness, could not order trust, could not manufacture listening. Shut her out, he shouted. Nobody moved, not even the guards. They were listening too. Adrian reached for the control himself. Rowan stepped between him and the dais. The Alpha King's power was still unstable, but he did not use crown resonance. He simply said, enough. Captain of the Royal Guard seized Adrian's arm. Release me. The Chancellor struggled. The network requires control. Evelyn looked at him over the book. No. Her voice was quiet. The people require a choice. Then she read the final line. The Storykeeper symbol beneath the old book blazed gold. The conquered network broke. Silver light raced through the floor. One circle extinguished, then another. Hundreds. Pack representatives gasped as their minds separated. Rowan dropped to one knee. Evelyn smiled. They had done it. Then the first emotion hit her. Grief to Moss, his dead son. Evelyn staggered. Then fear. A young Omega terrified she would disappoint her pack. Then rage. An Alpha whose brother had betrayed him. Then loneliness. A widow. Shame. A father. Hope. A child. Hundreds. Every emotional echo Heartscript had touched returned through the severed network. Evelyn. Her voice sounded far away. She dropped the book. The hall disappeared beneath other people's lives. She was crying for someone she had never met, then laughing, then afraid, then furious. "Evelyn!" Hands approached. She recoiled. "Don't." Rowan stopped. Instantly. Now, even while she was falling, he did not decide for her. "What do you need?" She looked at him, and that was the problem. She felt his emotions too: exhaustion, fear, relief, and beneath them, a loneliness so familiar she recognized it immediately, the wolf beneath her table. But now there was something else wrapped around it, something warm, terrified, deeply attached. Her heart, or his, ached. "I don't know." Evelyn pressed both hands against her head. "I don't know which ones are mine." Rowan lowered himself several feet away. He did not touch her. "Then choose one thing you know." She tried. Library, was that hers? Fear? Whose? Loneliness? His, hers. Both. Then Evelyn found one memory. 8:17. Claws scratching softly against a door. She opened it. A wolf waited outside. He did not force his way in. She chose to let him enter, and he chose to stay. Evelyn looked at Rowan. "You." His face broke. "Yes. You're real?" "Yes." She reached toward him. Only then did he move. Rowan caught her as her knees failed. Around them, hundreds of shifters were free. Adrian had lost control of the Concord. The crown was stable. They had won. But as Evelyn buried her face against Rowan's chest, another stranger's grief crashed through her. Then another. Then another. She screamed. Rowan held her only because she had chosen his arms, and as darkness closed around Evelyn, the irony became cruelly clear. She had spent her entire life believing nobody listened to her. Now she could hear everyone, and she no longer knew where their voices ended or where her own began. Evelyn stopped reading. For the first time in 11 years, Briar Glen Library became completely silent. She locked the doors, closed the curtains, put the king beyond the lantern inside a drawer. Then she sat alone beneath the reading lamp and waited for silence to fix her. It didn't. A woman was grieving inside her chest. A young alpha was furious with his father. Someone was terrified of becoming a parent. Someone else missed a dead brother. Hundreds of emotional echoes moved through Evelyn without names or faces, and the worst part was that every one of them felt like hers. She pressed her hands against her temples. "Stop." Nothing stopped. She raised her voice. "Stop." A book fell from a shelf. Evelyn flinched. Fear surged through her. Was that hers? She didn't know. That frightened her more. 3 days had passed since the Concord Hall. Adrian Voss remained under royal investigation. The altered network had been dismantled. PAC representatives had returned home. Everyone else was recovering. Evelyn was supposed to be recovering too. Instead, she was disappearing beneath other people's feelings. She had refused the palace physicians, refused the royal guest chambers, refused Rowan's offer to remain nearby. She had come home because the library was hers. Surely here, surrounded by familiar things, she would remember who Evelyn Marlowe was. She tried making tea. Lavender, hers, she thought. Then the scent made her unbearably sad. Was lavender connected to someone else's funeral? She poured it away. She tried shelving books. A children's story made joy explode through her so suddenly. She started laughing, then crying. Neither emotion felt trustworthy. By evening, Evelyn stood before the small mirror in the archive room. Hazel eyes, dark brown hair, 26 years old, librarian. Omega Evelyn Marlowe. Facts. She could still identify facts. Feelings were harder. What do you want? She waited for an answer from herself. Instead, grief arrived. then anger, then Rowan's loneliness. That one she recognized now. It was quieter than the others. Older. Deep enough that it almost felt peaceful, because he had carried it for so long. Evelyn closed her eyes. No. She did not want to use Rowan as a landmark inside her own mind. That was not healing. She needed to find herself without him. So Evelyn did what she had always done when life became too loud. She reached for a book. Her hand stopped. Heartscript. The thought frightened her. She pulled away. No more stories. She extinguished the lamps and sat in darkness. The voices remained. The scratching came at 8:17. Evelyn's heart stopped. 2 soft scratches against the back door, exactly as before. She did not move. Another scratch. Then silence. He waited. Of course he did. Evelyn closed her eyes. Go away. No answer. She could sense him anyway, not through mate bond alone. Through the emotional echo left inside her. Concern, patience, fear, attachment, too much. Please. Her voice broke. I can't tell if I want you here or if that's your feeling. Silence followed. Then Rowan spoke through the door. I'll leave. Pain pierced her chest. Evelyn almost called him back. She stopped herself. Was that pain hers? His? The bond. She hated this. Footsteps moved away. Evelyn listened until they disappeared. Then she cried for an hour because she had no idea whose heartbreak she was feeling. The answer had been sitting inside the library for more than a century. Evelyn found it the following morning because she knocked. The King Beyond the Lantern from the desk. The book opened to the old illustration, the crowned man, the storyteller, wolves resting around them. Evelyn stared. Something was different. She moved the page toward the window. The storykeeper symbol shimmered. 7 stars, open book. Then Heartscript reacted, not powerfully, almost like recognition. A second image appeared beneath the first. Evelyn stopped breathing. There were not 2 figures in the illustration. There were 3. The third had faded so completely, she had never seen him. He sat behind the storyteller with one hand against her back, not controlling her, not holding her upright, listening. Evelyn turned the page. Silver writing appeared. A storykeeper may hear 1,000 hearts. Below it. Therefore, one heart must know the storykeeper. Evelyn's pulse quickened. She searched the archive, genealogies, folklore, old Briar Glen records. Nothing. Then she remembered the 7-star symbol carved beneath the lowest shelf. Evelyn knelt, pressed it. A panel opened. Inside lay one thin book wrapped in faded linen. On the cover, Marlowe. Her hands shook. She opened it. The first page contained a painted portrait. A woman with Evelyn's eyes below. Elara Marlowe, storykeeper of the Northern Concord. Evelyn looked back toward the illustration. The storyteller. Her ancestor. She continued reading. Storykeepers had never been servants of the crown. They had never been magical instruments used to calm rebellious packs. They were independent. Their purpose was not obedience. It was balance. The crown heard the pack. The storykeeper helped the crown distinguish listening from drowning. And when the storykeeper carried too many emotional echoes, someone performed the opposite role. Or listener anchor. Evelyn read faster. The anchor did not remove feelings, did not suppress them, did not take ownership of them. The anchor provided a known emotional reference. One heart willingly opened. One presence the storykeeper could recognize with certainty. From that reference, the storykeeper could separate self from echo. Evelyn's hope rose. Then she read the requirement. Her stomach dropped. The listener must share resonance already formed through repeated voluntary exchange. Only one person qualified, Rowan. She turned the page. There was a warning. Nothing may be hidden during anchoring. For a crown bearer, opening the connection meant lowering every emotional defense maintained through crown resonance, fear, shame, grief, desire, attachment, everything. Evelyn stared at the words. Rowan would have nowhere to hide, not even from her. She closed the book. No. A knock sounded at the front door, not scratching, knocking. Evelyn almost laughed. Come in. The door opened. Rowan entered. He remained beside it. You found something. How do you know? You sound angry. I am angry. Relief crossed his face. Evelyn stared. Why are you pleased? Because you're certain it's yours. She stopped. He was right. She was angry, not Thomas, not the frightened Omega, not Rowan. Her Evelyn almost smiled, then remembered why she was angry. She pushed the Marlowe book across the table. Rowan read. His expression became still. No, that was my reaction. We do it. That was not Evelyn. You didn't read the cost. I did. All your emotional defenses, yes. Your crown resonance will be completely open. Yes. I'll feel everything. I understand. No, you don't. She stood. You've spent your entire life making sure nobody has to carry what you feel. Rowan became quiet. And this asks you to hand all of it to me, not permanently. That doesn't make it easy. I didn't say it was easy. Then why? Rowan looked at her. Because you asked me that once. What? Why I kept returning. Her breath caught. He stepped closer, then stopped at the same respectful distance he always chose when uncertain. I wasn't ready to answer. Evelyn's heartbeat changed. Are you now? No. She blinked. Rowan gave a tired smile, but perhaps that's the point. He looked toward the old reading chair. When I was 16, crown resonance awakened. His voice lowered. The first thing my father taught me was never to let the pack feel uncertainty through me. Evelyn listened. Fear creates fear. Anger creates anger. So I learned to close everything, even from yourself eventually. That explained the wolf, the loneliness, the king who could hear every voice except his own. Rowan looked at the Marlowe book. If becoming your anchor means you see what I've spent 17 years hiding, then that is the price. You could regret it. Yes, you could hate me afterward. No, you don't know that. No, Evelyn frowned. Rowan's eyes held hers. But I know I would hate myself if I let fear make this decision for you. Silence. He extended one hand, stopped halfway. Your choice. Evelyn stared at it. All her life she had wanted people to listen. Now hundreds of people lived inside her emotions. Her old instinct told her not to burden anyone. Fix it alone. Stay useful. Stay quiet. She had tried. It was destroying her. Evelyn placed her hand in Rowan's. Yes. They sat on the floor beside the reading chair, exactly where the black wolf had once rested. Evelyn placed the king beyond the lantern between them. What do I do? Rowan asked. Listen. His mouth curved. I'm experienced. Debatable. She opened the Marlowe text. Don't resist anything you feel. That instruction is less appealing. Still experienced, becoming less so. Evelyn smiled. Then she activated heart script. Once there was a king. The mate bond opened. Rowan gasped. His defenses fell. Evelyn felt him. Really felt him. Fear first, not fear of death. Fear of failing everyone. Then shame. Every moment he had needed help and believed that need made him weaker. Then grief. His mother. His father. Friends buried beneath royal duty. Then loneliness. The enormous familiar loneliness she had touched beneath the reading table. Evelyn cried. Rowan's hand trembled in hers. "Keep going." She did. The echoes inside her began separating. Thomas's grief moved left. The young Omega's fear moved away. Anger, hope, shame. Hundreds of feelings regained boundaries, and beneath them, Evelyn. Lavender, because her grandmother dried it inside library books. Joy when children laughed between shelves. Fear that the library would close. Love for stories. Love for Briar Glen. Then she touched Rowan's final unguarded emotion. Attachment. No, more than attachment. Tenderness so deep it frightened him. Directed entirely at her, Evelyn stopped reading. Rowan's eyes opened. He knew what she had felt. Color rose beneath his skin. The Alpha King of Valdorn actually looked embarrassed. Evelyn laughed through her tears. "Don't. I didn't say anything. Your face did. Now you know how it feels." Rowan looked away. Evelyn squeezed his hand. "That's yours." He looked back. "What?" The embarrassment. A laugh escaped him. "And this is mine." She leaned forward, stopped inches from him. Rowan did not close the distance. He waited. Evelyn smiled, then kissed him. Not because Heartscript asked, not because Mate Bond pulled, not because the crown needed a story keeper. Because Evelyn Marlowe knew exactly what she felt, and she wanted to kiss Rowan Thorne. His hand rose toward her cheek, paused. She nodded. Only then did he touch her. When they separated, Evelyn rested her forehead against his. The library was quiet, truly quiet. The echoes still existed, but now they had names that were not hers. Rowan's feelings remained open beside her. Vulnerable, imperfect, real. "You were right," Evelyn whispered. "About being needed isn't the same as being a burden." Rowan smiled faintly. "No." She looked at the old reading chair. "And being listened to isn't the same as being obeyed." Outside, Briar Glen's evening bell rang. Neither of them flinched. For the first time since Concord, Evelyn heard the sound and felt only one emotion in response. Peace, her own. 3 months after the Concord renewal nearly destroyed itself, Evelyn received a letter from the Royal Council. She read the first paragraph, then handed it to Rowan. "No." The Alpha King looked up from the stack of books he was pretending to organize. "You haven't finished it. I reached Royal Storykeeper. There are benefits. There is also a palace, traditionally, and council meetings, unfortunately." Evel took the letter back. "No." Rowan smiled. The council had proposed making her the first official Royal Storykeeper in more than a century, a prestigious title, a generous salary, rooms inside the palace, and enough carefully worded obligations to ensure Evelyn's gift slowly became crown property. She declined. Instead, Briar Glen Library became an independent storykeeper sanctuary. The crown funded its restoration. It did not control it. That distinction was written into law. So was another crown residence could no longer be expanded, redirected, or connected to PAC representatives without voluntary participation. Rowan himself had requested independent oversight. Adrian Voss had been removed as Minister of PAC Stability and charged with knowingly activating the altered Concord after evidence showed the network was already dangerous. He had wanted peace. He had simply decided choice was an acceptable price for it. Rowan refused to make the same mistake. The investigation uncovered one final mystery. Several missing storykeeper records had not been destroyed. They had been moved. Somewhere beneath the old Capitol existed a sealed collection known only as the Hollow Archive. Evelyn intended to find it someday, but not today. Today, Mrs. Bellamy's granddaughter was waiting impatiently for story hour. and for the first time in years, every chair in Briar Glen Library was occupied. Evelyn stood before them, opened a book, and spoke. People listened, not because HeartScript made them, because they wanted to. That difference meant everything. Healing came quietly. Evelyn still carried faint emotional echoes. Sometimes grief arrived without warning. Sometimes fear brushed against her thoughts and she needed several seconds to recognize it as belonging to someone else. When that happened, she returned to what she knew: old paper, lavender, wild honey, her library, her name, and occasionally pine smoke, rain, and dark cedar. Rowan. Not because she needed him to tell her who she was, because she had chosen to let him know her well enough to remind her. He never entered the listener-anchor connection without asking, never assumed mate bond meant permission, and never once told her that becoming his mate required becoming part of his court. In return, Evelyn learned something about Alpha Kings. They were terrible at shelving books. "You've done it again." Rowan looked innocent. "What?" "History is beside romance. Both contain wars. That does not make them the same category. Some of those romances contain significantly more casualties." Evelyn took the books from him. "Why are you even doing this? Helping? You're hiding from your advisors. Those things can coexist." She laughed. Rowan watched her. The expression in his eyes still occasionally made her forget what she was doing. Mate bond had grown stronger. So had something far more important: trust built not through destiny, through repetition. Question-answer, boundary, respect, choice, again and again. One rainy evening, Rowan did not arrive at his usual time. 8:17 passed. Evelyn noticed. She pretended not to. 8:30. Still nothing. Evelyn rolled her eyes at herself. "You are the Alpha King's mate. He doesn't need to scratch at the door." At 8:43, the library door opened. Rowan entered carrying something beneath his coat. "You're late. A constitutional crisis." Evelyn frowned. "Seriously?" "No." Horse threw a shoe. She threw a bookmark at him. He caught it, then placed the object he carried on the reading table. Evelyn recognized the worn blue cover immediately. The King Beyond the Lantern. Her copy. "You stole my book, borrowed without asking. I am about to return it. You've been spending too much time with politicians." Rowan sat beside her old reading chair. Not on a throne, not at the head of a council table. On the floor, exactly where a black wolf had once rested. He opened the book. Evelyn stared. "What are you doing?" "Reading, I can see that." "You should sit." Her eyebrows rose. Was that crown resonance? "No." "Good." She sat. Rowan looked down at the page. For the first time, Evelyn realized he was nervous. The discovery delighted her. Alpha King Rowan Thorne is afraid of reading aloud. "I command armies. Books are clearly worse." He gave her a look, then began. "Once there was a king who could hear every voice in his kingdom." Evelyn stopped smiling. Yet, when night came, he could no longer hear his own. Rain tapped against the windows. The library disappeared. She remembered a wounded wolf beneath her table, a bowl of water, steel gray eyes, her own voice trembling while she pretended not to be frightened. Now the king was reading the story to her. No HeartScript moved through the room. It did not need to. When Rowan reached the passage about the storyteller beyond the final lantern, he closed the book. Evelyn waited. There was one question she had never received a complete answer to. "When did you stop needing the library?" Rowan looked at her. She clarified. "As the wolf." He understood. "When did your injury heal enough that you could have returned to the palace?" A long silence. Then Rowan said, "Long before I stopped coming." Evelyn's heart tightened. How long? By the fourth night, I could travel. She stared at him. You came for almost 2 weeks, yes. You were healed, physically. The resonance, manageable. The mate bond. I suspected it. Evelyn waited. Rowan smiled faintly. I know what you're asking. Then answer. His gaze moved toward the place beside her chair, where his wolf had once slept. The first night, I came because I was injured. He touched the book. The second because your voice quieted crown resonance. And after that, because you never asked anything from me. Evelyn became still. You didn't know I was king. You didn't need protection, influence, money, or access to the crown. His voice softened. You opened a door. Rowan looked at her, and then you let me decide whether to enter. The memory returned. A wolf, waiting outside, never forcing the door. I spent my entire life surrounded by people who needed the king, Rowan continued. In this library, you didn't even know he existed. Evelyn's eyes burned. So why keep listening? Because when you read, he searched for the words. I didn't have to carry anyone, no crown, no pack, no kingdom, just a story. And eventually, Rowan said, I realized I wasn't returning because I needed your gift. He reached toward her hand, stopped. Evelyn turned her palm upward, their fingers intertwined. I was returning because I wanted you, not heart script, not mate bond. Her Evelyn laughed softly through tears. You could have saved us considerable trouble by shifting. I maintain that the shepherd romance delayed my confession. You hated that book. It was appalling. You put your paw over your face. I considered leaving the kingdom. She laughed harder. Rowan smiled. Then Evelyn leaned forward and kissed him. No supernatural magic was required to explain it. Later, Rowan shifted. The enormous black wolf crawled beneath the old reading table. Evelyn stared down at him. Seriously? One steel gray eye opened. You don't fit. His tail struck the floor. Once. Evelyn smiled. Beside him remained the old water bowl. She had never thrown it away. Nobody needed it anymore. That was why she kept it. A reminder. Need could bring someone through a door. It could not make them stay after they were free to leave. Only choice could do that. Evelyn returned to her chair. Opened the king beyond the lantern, then reconsidered. She placed it on the floor beside Rowan. Your turn tomorrow. The wolf groaned. Evelyn laughed. Outside, rain covered Briar Glen in silver. Inside, the library glowed with warm lamplight. And the Omega, who once believed her voice had no value because almost nobody listened, finally understood something simple. A voice did not become meaningful because it reached thousands. Sometimes changing one life was enough, and the Alpha King who believed strength meant carrying every voice alone had learned something too. Sometimes the safest place in the world was not a fortress. It was a door someone opened, without forcing you to enter. So, I want to leave you with one question. Brian was wrong to endanger innocent shifters and remove their ability to choose. But his fear was real. If a supernatural gift could prevent violence and save lives, should society ever be allowed to require its use? Or does the moment we force someone to create peace become the moment that peace stops being real? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if Evelyn and Rowan's story stayed with you, like, share, and subscribe for more emotional werewolf romances, where fate may introduce two hearts, but choice decides what they become. May God bless you and your family with peace when the world feels loud, health through every season, happiness in your home, love that respects your choices, safety wherever your road leads, strength when life becomes heavy, and hope enough to believe that somewhere ahead there is still a warm light, an open door, and someone willing to listen.